Or recording this for future purposes. And it's been a while since we've done one of these sessions. And I'm sorry, I apologize for that. I've been busy as of late with different stuff I got going on personally. But we're back at it. And yeah, we're just gonna dive straight into it, do a little analysis for the market opens. What we could possibly see happening this week. So as you know, what I'm gonna do is just go over my analysis, do some we'll do up some setups, some possible players that we could possibly see coming into this week. Looking into this week, we don't actually have much going on. We're just continuing with previous market sentiment that we did have from the previous week. The more major mover, more major, focus being the US dollar as of right now, with inflation being higher than expected with last week's release. As well as we had CPI data. So we did have a sort of a very weirdly moving US dollar for the time being as we got that news release. If we just look on one of the cross pairs, I see. Let's look at USD. Okay, I think it was like on USD CAD. Yeah, right around here, we did have the news release. Price didn't do much. We dropped down, and it looked like we could have possibly get a lower continuation with the high inflation that we did. So, that being bad overall for the U.S. economy. However, we did get rumors that we probably see a 100 basis point increase at the next interest rate for the U.S. dollar, right? Which would be the week after this one. So the following week, we should see a rise in the US dollar again from the Fed to control and kind of curb inflation, which again, I already discussed in a video posted that this inflation is it's not really a problem the Fed itself can really solve because it doesn't necessarily deal with the US economy itself, but rather from outside factors causing inflation worldwide, globally, to actually be affecting prices as they are, right? But again, as the Fed, the Federal Reserve, and other central banks of these large economies, they have to do what they can in order to, kind of make that inflation increase, kind of halt it, or at least start to see some kind of recede in that inflation rising, right? So for the next interest rate on the 27th of July, right? So we do see here that the consensus is that it will be around 2.5%, which is around a 0.50% increase from the previous. So that is something that we could possibly see, but again, it is rumored that we'll probably see even higher interest rate increase. So if we do see something like that on Wednesday itself, that could be really bullish for the US dollar, right? So what we did have happening earlier last week, right? After we saw those high inflation numbers, and after we got that rumor of that 100 basis point increase, we saw an increase in the US dollar to suit, right? So with those rumors, investors ran with that, and we saw this spike to the upside for the US dollar. But obviously, this is something we still have yet to see. And this is where it comes to expectations versus reality. And the reality is inflation is high. Yes, we could expect an interest rate increase, but the reality of it as well is that we haven't seen that yet, right? So price came up. We didn't get a continuation moving higher than this. We saw some rejections from those daily highs. We just come here, right? So, and this is just, I'm using USD CAD as an example, right? Because one of the more clearer charts for you to see and understand this, and why is this such a focus, right? So we saw on this day, price actually pushed higher up, but then we got a correction back down into these levels right here, right? And this is on the daily chart. So we did get a correction pullback right below these levels of, resistance, right? So we could possibly see throughout the course of this week, we could possibly see a continuation lower until we do come up on those interest rates increase, right? So from here, I do believe, unless if we do see price actually start, holding some support around this level and pushing higher, I do believe we could possibly see a continuation lower. I would look to sell on this pair particularly. Maybe if we do get a break to the downside around this level here, right? So a break below here would be pretty good for sell opportunities against the US dollar, right? Not the most well, if you want to be conservative, probably not the safest course of action, depending on what type of trader you are. But here, I do trade fundamentals. I do trade what I'm seeing currently, market psychology as well. And this is something that is expected, right? This is something that could probably play out for the remainder of, this week leading to the week afterwards, right? So this is something that I am in particularly looking for, possibly selling short in the US dollar for the time being until we do come up closer to those interest rates increase, right? Also looking at the other currency pairs that we have, I'm really looking more at the risk assets, just because we do have sort of a mixed tone when it does come into if we are in a risk on, risk off sort of a market environment, which a lot of people have been asking me. And to answer that question is that it's sort of just balancing out right now, right? It's not risk on, it's not risk off right now. What we do have in focus on the larger side of the overall, economic outlook is the US dollar. The US dollar being the more so heavily focused currency because it is again a reserve currency of the world. And so what does happen with the US dollar if inflation continues rising? It would have a sort of a chain effect. It will have a global impact, right? So coming to the market sentiment of that, right? We're not in a risk on, we're not in a risk off right now. We're just trying to deal with this overall inflationary level that we are seeing, right? And we are seeing that each federal bank, each federal reserve, each central bank, sorry, right? We are seeing that they are trying to deal with this in some sort of way, right? For the AD card, we had card interest rates come out already. We saw that it came out, I believe, around like to 2.5% compared to the previous. I'll just check that to just, clarify. That was when. All right, yeah, so we did get an increase to 2.5%. Looking in particular on the AD card, right, I would say that we could possibly see price continue to the downside. Let me just take a look from the daily. Overall, largely, we can see that this is sort of a downtrend market right now, right? So the AD is the more weaker currency in this case. The two of them do share some similarities when it comes to outside factors as well, such as commodities affecting them. One being for like the Canadian dollar, oil does have a lot of correlation with the CAD. But it remains to see whether that would be something that we'll probably see playing out for this week, if we'll actually see anything oil related actually affecting the Canadian dollar, right? It doesn't happen all the time, but sometimes you do see a sort of a relation between the two. So maybe we might get something about maybe oil inventories. I'm not sure how often those do come out. Let's just check this week. What we do have coming up this week, we have CPI and we have core inflation for the CAD. So we do have an expectancy to see that a larger inflation number for the Canadian dollar. We did also have the interest rate increase already, right? So we see that the central bank for the Canadian dollar are taking actions in order to kind of curb this inflation rate. So on the release of that, we could possibly see a stronger Canadian dollar, right? Just because we did already see some sort of action being taken. And this is the thing about market psychology and what to expect and why fundamentals is a very it's a very complex game, right? Because the markets won't always move to suit what you would expect from certain data, right? Just as how we had the CPI for the US coming out strong, but however, we also had the high inflationary numbers. So what we expected was possibly to see, on a larger scale of things, right? You would expect for the inflationary numbers being high to be something that is bad for the US currency, just because inflation overall is something bad, but the expectancy behind it, as well as what we had comments coming afterwards, where we did see that they talked about having 100 basis point increase being on the table for the next week, not this week, but the week following, interest rate decision being something that could possibly happen, right? So we saw that strength, that improvement on the US dollar. And that is something that you need to pay attention to when you're doing fundamentals, right? Inflation, you would see on the economic calendars, they'll say it will be marked as good when it's higher than expected, which is not necessarily true. It depends on the circumstance and the situation, right? But again, we did see that actually happening for the US dollar, right? And I just want you to keep that in mind as we continue moving on. If we don't have a session next week, this would be something that you should keep in focus for the following week after, right? So that's why, like, I'll reiterate it over and over again, just so you know. If you have to take a note, then take a note. This is being recorded, so you can watch back on it as well. I'll post it on YouTube. I'm not editing anything. So you guys will get the information raw and just one time, right? Continuing on, anything that we are seeing really is just, it's like a nonchalant week coming up, right? We have interest rate for the yen expected to remain the same, negative rates. We also have the ECB having interest rates. We expect an increase from 0%. Previously, it was negative 0.25%, and then we came to zero, and now we're expecting an increase again to 0.25%, right? The ECB has been one of the more lagging central bank and kind of lax on their monetary policies. So I didn't expect much of a movement on something such as Euro USD. And also we do have parity, which is basically €1 is worth the same as, $1. The exchange rate is basically the same. And you could just find it here, Euro USD. Right, so you can see which price is right now for the Euro USD, right? You can see they're both worth one of each other, right? So which part we are right now, we could possibly see the euro coming down even more. I think this is the lowest it has reached since 2003 or somewhere. So if you look at it monthly, see, last time I was here was around, so it was around here, in 2002. That's an even lower, which was like in 2001 when, for example, became more of like a mainstream thing, right? So we are back at that level. Again, the ECB has been more lax within monetary policies and whatnot. So continuing on, I won't actually be looking to buy into the euro really anytime soon. Also, with interest rates coming out, we could possibly still see a decline overall, just because, again, we are more focused on US dollar right now. That is the main mover in the markets. So in terms of Euro USD, if we just draw in levels, right, we can see that overall we are in a strong downtrend. We came into this area right here, price rejected from the lower levels. So we could say that we sort of in a range, right? So we could say that we just trade in between these two levels. Again, price being they're equal to each other. One US is equivalent to €1 at this point, right? So we could possibly see a continuation even lower. It depends, again, how we see markets move, how we see investors just go with the flow or whatever they decide to do. So I wouldn't actually be looking to trade this right now. Maybe you could trade from the top here, expecting price to come back down to these levels. I don't know. I don't think it's worth the risk, just because anything could happen at this point, right? But more than likely, there's a higher probability to see a continuation moving lower, just because, again, the euro has been the weaker currency thus far right now, right? So I would say it's 50-50, but still a higher probability to play to the downside. But I'm not looking at this right now, right? So if we do actually see price come probably into this level right here, and I'll set an alert, right? Then I'll look to possibly, get in for sells. I'll be more bullish on US dollar in terms of this currency cross pair. All right. So 80 CAD, And you can see I marked these with a orange tag, right? These are the ones I'm interested in. 80K, looking for possible sells. If you just look the daily again, right, we can see overall we broke this level right here. We did have a bullish rejection, but ultimately we did come back down and broke past that level. If we look to the 4 hour to see things more clearly, we could say that we are in sort of a range if we look overall, probably like right between these levels, right? And looking more closely onto the 1 hour, we can see, okay, we reached to these areas right here, had multiple rejection, push pass. Then again, we came back into that area, push pass again, and we could possibly see a continuation moving downwards, right? So maybe this is the highs that we reached for the recent highs, right? And maybe we could possibly see price actually continue lower back into this level right here, right? And probably retest it. So this is something that we could possibly see happening. I would take a trade on this. To be very honest, as soon as that market gap is over and spreads calm down, then this is something that I'll possibly look into getting into. So maybe you guys might get a free trade here. Right, for those of you that's not in the VIP group. Right, so something like this, maybe if the short, I mean, if price could come a little bit, get a little bit of more of a pullback here, and then a continuation move on to these lows here. So this is something that I think that has the potentiality to actually play out, right? And I'm not too bullish on the AD. I'm not too bullish on the CAD or anything like that, just because they do have correlations with commodities. And also, when you're not in a risk on or risk off market environment, right? Sentiment is basically neutral. We just have price doing what it does, right? That's where we are at this point. Main concern is inflation. Everybody knows that. Again, all economies basically bordering on a recession, a possible recession, and also slower growth. With everything going on, higher food prices, cost for goods, and all of these things coming into play, right? So we are in a negative market, but again, the sentiment remains neutral. So we can't trade off on market sentimental. So that is like my note to you guys, right? My piece of wisdom that I'm offering to you guys. Right? I could be wrong. Maybe something might change. We might get some sort of change or something like that. As we continue into the week, anything could happen. Right? Some news could just release out the spur, causing markets to get some volatility. Yeah, but as far as I'm concerned, what I could see, that is what we're doing. That is what we're in, right? This is another trade that I'm possibly interested in. Again, not bullish on the euro at all, pretty a lagging currency, especially with their policies. So therefore, I could see this possibly continue moving down. If you want to be more conservative, then you could wait for a break of this support, right? And re-enter if you get a retest of the support and resistance for a continuation moving downward. Overall, again, we can see that bearishness. We've run into the support multiple times right here. So if we do get that break, we have a higher probability of seeing a continuation move lower, right? And yeah, like I said, I could be bearish on this in favor of the AD and on this in favor of the CAD. I might say, well, you're not being like there's no coherency or anything like that. It has nothing to do with that. What it has to do is how these economies interact with each other and how much, right, compared to each other, one's overall worth is, right? So we could be bearish on the euro, therefore this has a higher chance of playing out. But again, like AED CAD, right? Overall, the CAD is stronger just because we did have those interest rate increase. We have a better performing Canadian dollar compared to the AD. Therefore, this could possibly continue this movement downwards from here, right? So that's the thing. And I've been in trades already that didn't go hand in hand with each other. You might be buying this one, might be selling this one, and you're going against one currency while you're going with that same currency on another trade or on another pair. And it happens, right? And it works out. And there's this you need to like be aware of that situation, right? Where price itself doesn't necessarily has to follow any specific rules rather than just, the fundamental overall bias that you can build between those two price interactions, right? Between those cross pairs, right? Anybody have any question? Hopefully that, I'm losing you. This is recorded so that I'll post it up on YouTube as well. So you can rewatch it if there's anything that you don't understand. But yeah, if you have any questions, feel free to ask. If everybody understand, everybody clear thus far, then you can leave, just indicate in the chat that, you understand. That I don't want to be talking and people not understanding what's being said, right? I'm really doing this because I want to help you guys grow. I want to help you guys understand the fundamentals, at least from my perspective. And, I just want to see everybody winning out here, right? Okay. All right, so I'm assuming everybody understands that's what I'm talking about. And I'm not just ranting to myself, right? Okay. So yeah, this was another trade as well that we did take inside the VIP group, which was a Eurocard sell. Again, euro being the more weaker currency. So again, this is like that same thing that I just now talk about, right? We comparing the currencies against each other, right? Not necessarily looking for those coherent movements. You take a, a position here in favor of the card, but maybe I watch something else like, which one was it? Card CHF. Yeah, so like card CHF, right? That was moving to the downside at the point of time too, right? So that's what I'm talking about. The interaction between the currencies, right? So you need to be aware of that. And understanding that would actually help you stay out from, particular trades that you might want to get into just because, all right, the setup looks good, but at the same time, why this doesn't move the same as this one, right? And then you'll be able to question yourself and understand, well, okay, it's not doing that because this currency actually is stronger than the next one. So if I look to take a sell here in favor of the card, right? I took a sell here in favor of the card, and now I'm like, I'm gonna take a buy on card CHF because the card's stronger. No, maybe the card's stronger on this, yeah, but on card CHF, not so much, just because there's some other fundamental factor going on with the Swiss that makes it the better buy, the better currency to look at when you look at this particular cross pair, right? So that is something that I do as well, right? So understanding how these crosses interact with each other, and that's why I might take one position here, right? I'm looking for higher yields, so I'll take one position here, and I'll take a position on like the USD card, right? And why I was more focused on looking for sell opportunities when this was moving up, because eventually I know for a fact, that there's a probability that eventually we'll actually see that rejection from the upside and actually see a continuation back lower. So that's why I was looking for sells at this point, right? Entered somewhere around here, right? That failed. So I was like, okay, then I'll wait until I see either a resistance, a top being formed, where price starts to lose momentum. We did get that at the top here where price went back, and I already had this position here. So I just said, okay, I'll enter here once I do see price come back into that, to my entry point right here, right? Could enter the top, nothing's wrong with that because we did get that rejection. So more than likely, instead of, filling this wick, we would have seen that price movement back downwards, right? But I already had this position here, so it didn't make sense. So we entered here, and you can see we got that play out. Price came all the way back down here, and we made from the previous loss and so forth, right? So yeah, that is something that you need to, I won't say necessarily you need to grasp, but it's good to understand why these things happen, right? And the interaction that these cross pairs do have with themselves. And this is like diving deeper into understanding, like the basis of Forex, like the true nature of Forex trading, right? So yeah, you can do technicals alone. Nothing's wrong with that, guys. I'm not saying you're wrong for just doing technical analysis alone. You could do that. You could be profitable if you have a system that works for you. That's a-okay. But again, this is, at least from my understanding, the reason why I'm able to make so much yields is because I actually dive into like the depths of this, right? on a constant basis. Ask anybody in the VIP, we just be making back to back 10, 20 crazy returns, right? And on a actual like it's repeated, it's not like a one-off thing, right? It's repeated results, right? So yeah, that's just like, at least if you want to reach to that point, then I would say that's something that you should, at least put on your to-do list to grasp. um but yeah, continuing forward with what else I'm looking at. Again, we just running with the overall data that we did get from last week, right? So there's nothing new really to look at for this week. We might have a calm, just, off trading week for this one, right? Mightn't be too much to get into or whatever the case may be. Again, we have to wait and see what new data we do get out of the markets for, the remainder of the month. But yeah, just I'm only interested in Audcad really, right? Again, for a sell opportunity right here. After this closes, I'll wait on the 67 candle, see if that comes into this entry point. How that closes, I'll enter on it. I do usually do execute early entries on Sunday market openings. Sometimes they work out, sometimes they don't work out. Yeah. But yeah, that would be something I'm interested in here, as well as possibly I would actually look for probably USD card continuations with my sell bias, right? And yeah, that's basically it. Anything else is a probability to just watch and see what happens. This will be a risky entry if we do actually take our entry right at this point. Just because, again, not bullish on the euro at all right now, but anything could happen, right? Because I'm not bullish on the AD either, right? It's just better currency to actually get into in this particular case. It has a potentiality to play out, but if you want to be more conservative again, and I think I'll be more conservative with this, I'll just look to see if we do actually get a break or maybe a closure into the zone and a possible continuation. Because if we do close into the zone and we don't get a rejection from it like this or any of these crap ass candles that we're seeing, then I would think that there'll be a higher probability of seeing that lower price movement, right? So if we do get a bearish candle close, even if it's a bullish candle close in the zone, right, I would actually look to possibly sell on that and see that continuation further down. If we're looking at target levels, yeah, right around here. Yeah, this would be like the first target level for me. Right here, the lowest price reached there. Right. And yeah, that's probably all. EG. Let's see. Right. I'm not right now, honestly, I'm not a fan of the pound either. Just because it has like the same sort of have the same sort of fundamental bias on the pound as the euro, right? They're both kind of laggy when it comes to their monetary policy statements. We have anything for the pound this week? Actually, we have inflation, right? Possibly something that you could probably get a trade-off of this, and just the volatility that we might get of inflation rising. Continuing, nah, we have retail sales as well, and that's it. Yeah, so not really much for the pound really. Just early on, we have the inflation rate, which would be on Wednesday, and we have unemployment for Tuesday, right? So yeah, not much honestly. And even unemployment, we do see that we have employment change, sorry, we do see that we have sort of a negative expectancy, right? So this number, the consensus is a lot less than the previous, which will be negative if we do come underneath this or right around that. Kind of bad for the GBP. Unemployment rate looks like it should be the same. And for inflation, it actually looks like inflation will rise by 0.1%, right? No, I'm not looking at GU at all. But if you want to go over it, like, let's see, right? So we'll come back to EG, right? So GU, right? GU also fallen down pretty heavily, as you can see from the curve of this daily chart. Yikes, right? So again, the US dollar being the main focus, main mover right now. Looking closer, so we just note this bottom right here, right? And also this area here where price spiked from the upside into this downtrend. And if you look on the 1 hour, and this is just like some technical aspects, right? Because the GBP itself, there's nothing to be bullish about, right? There's nothing to be bullish about on the pound right now. The pound was one of the first economies to actually be fearing a recession, right? And then everything else kind of just fall into suit. But right now, US dollar is main focus. Probably we might come back into this level just because market has to have some kind of some kind of uniformity, right? So we could possibly see price come back into this level and then, just complete this range and price come back down here. So maybe that's a trade. Maybe we could actually enter for a buy position right here if you want to risk, if you want to, be a little bit risky, if you have that risk tolerance, right? This is something that you could possibly get into. I'll actually put my stops right here if I actually look to get into this. Right, if I was going to get into this, and this would be something that I would have possibly taken, but I don't think it's worth it right now, right? Just because, again, the thing with these major currencies, that the major cross pairs that you are looking at, anything against the US dollar, the US dollar is the more main focus mover, right? So that is something that you need to be aware of. So if you're looking for any setups, naturally you'll be looking for sell setups, you'll be looking for setups in favor of the US dollar, right? Especially when these economies such as the England, right, for the pound, the euro, right, for European Union, like those two, right, those two economies compared to the US economy has been more of a lagging with their monetary policy statements and all of that, combating inflation and whatnot, right? So they're not any bullish aspect at all. And looking at the price action is a mess, right? If you want to, again, you can risk it and probably get into here for sells early on or maybe buys. I'm telling you, it could go either way, right? And the markets, it might try to complete this move right here, just because from previously we did bounce from this low right here. So it might try to complete this move back up and then continue back down, right? So it really have nothing to take at this point right now. You have to either see one of those moves complete or maybe price actually push from here and start coming downwards even more, right? And then you'll be like, okay, I could take a sell setup at this point. All right. Back to Euro GBP. Same thing. Euro and GBP, same thing, right? We saw price moving up here, in favor of the euro for a little bit, but overall, like another 4 hour, we came down strong right around here. If you want to, draw some levels, you could say that this is a possible rejection area. Price might continue lower. Again, I'm not bullish. I don't have any, sort of anything separating the currency strength of these two. They're basically the same, right? So if we do get a continuation lower, I would say that's just because of the overall price action, right? That's just price action movement. That's like a technical thing, right? Price just completely move because we already got this break downside. Retest here, looking at the 1 hour, right? If we do break this and we come down, like, okay, let's say at the ending of this here, right? The ending of this candle, let's say from 67, we see candle actually form lower and push past this, then more than likely you might see a sell continuation, right? You might see price continue lower, right? And that is the expected probability. Now, again, during session times early on, when markets don't open between now and Monday, when we do have the New York session open as well, you do see maybe one of these two currencies would actually see some sort of some sort of bullish momentum, right? So it might be the GBP, it might be the euro. I don't know what exactly caused it. It's just something that I've noticed happening a lot of times, right? So this could play out either way. You could take the risk and enter early on, as I said again, but I wouldn't do that. I personally wouldn't do that. I'll wait until Monday shows up, New York session open. Maybe you might even do it during London session. You might be able to get some move, but I'll look for, when the majority of traders coming in, or the, big hedge funds, investors, and whatnot at New York session open, right? And you might see a possible more clearer direction of where price might continue from here. All right. But if you was looking to enter early, something I would do, I would just wait for this candle to finish form, wait between 6 and 7 for the next candle, see how that forms, and if it pushes up, then I would look for either a push further up from here and enter for a continuation moving higher, or if it actually pushes down, I'll look for that sell and try to make some gains, maybe a 1 to 2 or something like that. I don't think early on you should go for anything higher than 1 to 2, just because it's not expected to continue, right? Especially now, how the market condition is now, right? So hopefully that answers you guys' questions. All right, we have 3 minutes left here. If anybody have anything to ask, please do so now. And time really flies by when you're having fun, right? I do hope everybody does have a great trading week. I'm not looking to rush anything, honestly. Last week was good, week before was great, and last month was awesome. So I'm not really looking to rush anything. We could take a slow month, a slow week every here and there if needed, just to be more on the safe side. So yeah, and if anybody have any questions, feel free to ask. Other than that, I would end it right here. And also, once this video does saves, I'll upload it to YouTube. I'm not editing anything, so that you can rewatch it. And if you miss anything, if you find you need, to rewatch something a little bit more to just, get a clarification on it, then you can do that. Also, you feel free to reach out to me either on Discord if you're in the TrendFX group, or you can message me, and you can also reach me on Telegram as well. Right. So that's it. Everybody have a great trading week. I'll see you in the next few hours because I'll be looking to take my first trade. So yeah, peace.